Okay. How's that? Did you know my microphone has an on and off button? And I always forget to check it because I always leave it on. But it sometimes if I move things around, I bump it and forget about it. So I guess nobody could hear anything coming up to that. I appreciate those who mentioned that they couldn't hear me. So I appreciate that. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah, it's been a pretty busy week. Wednesday night, I had a library board meeting. I'm also a trustee of the Eagle Public Library. Thursday night, I had a town hall meeting with the District 14 legislators, Representative Hill, Representative Tanner, Senator Grow. So we were there all night. It was a great turnout. Republicans, Independents, even Democrats. There are a few Democrats in Eagle, believe it or not. District 14 votes 75 to 80% for the Republican candidates in the November election, which is pretty awesome. But there are some Democrats there, and they are most welcome to come and talk to their legislators. That is the great thing about electoral politics, representative republics. And I was musing about how frustrating it must be to be a Democrat in Eagle or a Democrat in Boise, Democrat in Idaho, and watch Republicans continually win. Kind of like how I felt as a Republican in Washington many years ago. But on the other hand, it always looks better from the other side. The grass is always greener on the other side. So Democrats watch us and think that we're winning on everything. But of course, as conservatives, we know that we don't always win. And sometimes it's frustrating. So let's see what happened in the week that was. This is week 7 of the 2025 legislative session. I said right at the beginning, back when my microphone wasn't turned on, that it feels like it's just been a few minutes since I was here a week ago. But that's the way it is. Time moves fast. So this morning, legislative leadership had a press conference with the Secretary of State talking about some new campaign finance overhauls. We will watch that and go through those laws together. I actually have not read the text of those yet, so I'm looking forward to it. We'll discover things together as we go. Also, some other stuff that happened this week. Let me pop over to my screen here. Screen share. Select window. I think that's the right one. Got a lot of windows open. There we go. It's the Gem State Chronicle. GemStateChronicle.com. Remember to visit there. If you want to subscribe, you can tap the subscribe button right there. If you're on a mobile, you got this little hamburger menu with 3 lines and everything's there. So just go to subscribe and it'll take you to Substack, which is the subscription platform. Today, big news. I'll lose my mouse there. Big news. The mask mandate prohibition passed the Senate. So remember 2020. Everybody's wearing masks. Now, remember, at first, Dr. Fauci said, don't wear masks. And then he said, you have to wear masks. It was a bit of a contradiction in messaging there. But our governor told us to wear masks. Even President Trump wore a mask. Various people suggested it. And you know what? It's fine for elected leaders or unelected bureaucrats to make suggestions, to give us advice, to say, you know what? We think you should wear a mask when you're outside. And then we, as citizens of a republic, have the right to say either, yes, that sounds like good advice, I will follow it. Or you know what? No, I don't agree. However, in some places throughout the country and even throughout Idaho, there were mask mandates. People were told if you don't wear a mask, you might get fined. You might go to jail. In Moscow, Idaho, several people from a Christian church were praying outside, singing outside without masks, and they were arrested. Here in Idaho, people, facing various charges for whatever they were doing, whether it was, protesting at hospitals for whatever reason, were then told that they had to wear a mask in order to go to the courthouse. And if they refused, then they were, held in contempt and sent to jail. It was a bit of a mess. Thankfully, here in Eagle, our mayor at the time and our police chief at the time came right out and said, we're not going to arrest anyone for not wearing masks. So that was good. That gave us a bit of peace of mind. But not all citizens of Idaho had that peace of mind. Children in public schools were made to wear masks, even if they didn't want to, even if it was uncomfortable, even, and of course we know, I know, and you watching this know that masks are not, you know, they're not a panacea. They're not going to prevent you from getting sick. Um, in the doctor's office, wearing masks, say in a surgery room, there are protocols that go with that. Wearing masks in other places where it's necessary, there are protocols. People don't follow those protocols in real life. They put a mask on, off, on, off, on, off, touch it, move it, adjust it, wear it all day long. On the floor today during debate, Senator Tammy Nichols talked about doing experiments with masks, and she didn't actually elaborate. I'm kind of curious as to what those experiments, what it meant. Anyway, I'm just saying all that to remind you of what actually happened here just a few years ago. In 2022, shortly, right as the COVID scare was going away, then Representative Carrie Hanks introduced a bill to ban government agencies from imposing mask mandates on the public, and it didn't go anywhere. A couple years later, 2024, Representative Jason Gallagher, along with Senator Brian Lenny, introduced another bill that would do that. It passed the House, but the Senate refused to hear it. Senate State Affairs Senator Jim Guthrie, the chairman, just put it in his drawer and said, no, I'm not going to hear it. On the very last day of the session, Senator Nichols tried to pull it from the committee using a parliamentary procedure, and the Senate just shut her down. A lot of people, they're very attached to the way things are, the way things are done, and making a motion to pull a bill out of committee that the chair has decided not to hear, that's just not the way things are done, just so you know. So this year, both Carrie Hanks and Jason Gallagher are unfortunately not in the legislature this year. But Senator Lenny was back, and he worked with Representative Rob Beiswinger up in District 8 to introduce the bill again. It passed the House, and today, finally, it passed the Senate. And it didn't just pass the Senate. It wasn't close. All the Democrats voted against, and one Republican, Senator Jim Guthrie, familiar name, voted against as well. So that was fantastic. I was in the gallery for that. It was a great moment. I was sitting right next to Matt Edwards, the host over at Idaho Signal for Citizens Alliance of Idaho. He's been working on this for a long time, and he got really emotional over it, watching this finally happen. And it made me think that, one thing I told the folks at the town hall meeting last night is that you think politics is about going into the chamber with an idea that is so good that nobody could ever possibly disagree with you, and it just becomes law. But that's not how it works. Even good ideas have to go through this gauntlet. Print hearing, full hearing, floor vote, full hearing, floor vote, governor's desk. It's not about just coming in with a great idea and expecting everyone to jump on board. It's about persuasion. You have to persuade 36 people in the House, 18 people in the Senate, and one person in the governor's office for something to become law. That's it. There's no end runs around that unless you do an initiative, and that's really even harder, actually. That's the way things become law. And watching what Senator Lenny's done this year to get his bills heard and now get them to the desk of the governor is great. He's in his sophomore year, he's figured out the process, and I hope we can all learn from that. So that was a great event today. Looking back at the last few days of what I wrote 2 articles this week, one Monday and one on Friday about the Convention of States. Short thing. It's a very contentious subject. Supporters of the Article 5 convention, organizations such as Convention of States, are very zealous. I've had several people come up to me and say, how could you possibly oppose this if you're a conservative? Well, here's why. Well, you're wrong. Okay, that's fine. We can disagree. Good conservatives disagree on this issue, and I'm fine with that. But I wrote what I think and linked to others who wrote what they thought. I linked to the Convention of States website too, so if you want to go there and read their stuff. In today's article, I even linked to an op-ed that was written by a vice president of the Convention of States Action who called me out by name to tell me I was wrong. She didn't really answer my points. She just said I was wrong and go read these scholarly works to explain why. But that's fine. We can have that disagreement. Doge in Idaho. I do have fun making these AI-generated Shiba Inu images. Isn't he cute? uh, Obviously, at the federal level, we're seeing the whole DOGE initiative, Department of Government Efficiency, go through and just go through like a wrecking ball in our federal government. And obviously, we're not seeing that in our state government. We are seeing instead things that are very quietly being done, such as bills to move rules into statute, bills that would sunset statutes or sunset rules instead of just allowing them to stay in place forever. Just today, a bill that Representative Jordan Redmond sponsored eliminates 150 sections of code related to the Department of Health and Welfare. That's good. I mean, it's not going to be. It's not the big splashy thing that, say, grocery tax or school choice is, but it is the sort of thing that's going to improve quality of life, I think, for generations to come. It's necessary. Every few years, you need to go back and fix your law, fix your rules, because otherwise they grow like ivy. Imagine you have an old house and you don't tend it. It's going to get covered in ivy, covered in weeds, overgrown. That's what laws do. That's what bureaucracies do. That's what government does. Short of just raising the house and salting the earth, which I know some people want to do, to continue our metaphor with government, what we need to do is go in there and tend it. You read history, and every few generations, in whichever history you're reading, you come across a new lawgiver, somebody who takes all the old laws and makes a new set of laws that represents the will of the people. And clears out a lot of the Byzantine tangles. The very word Byzantine there refers to the Eastern Roman Empire that was based around Constantinople, and their laws became so complex that we actually use the word Byzantine, which was the name of their, kind of the colloquial name of their society, their civilization, to refer to laws that are, a tangled mess. English history, you read about King Alfred the Great. He went through and consolidated the laws and wrote them down and established them. Every couple of generations that happens. There are some European countries whose law code is still based on the code of Napoleon, because when he was master of Europe, he went through and simplified all their laws. In England, the laws are based on the common law, which is generations upon generations of cases built upon cases. And, that's kind of the foundation of our laws as well. Ultimately, we look back to something. There has to be some foundation to our laws. The Bible, 10 Commandments, natural law. And we have to go back and look through this tangle of rules and statutes and see, is this still serving the people? Is this still serving the goals of, say, natural law? And if it doesn't, we need to fix it. House Bill 119, sponsored by Representative Jeff Ehlers, eliminates licensing requirements for shorthand reporters. Did you know that shorthand reporters currently need to be licensed to practice? I did not either. So yeah, that was a little article. I got some pushback on that. People saying that, but they're still not cutting the budget. And okay, that's true. They're still working on the budget. We're probably not going to see a cut. It's going to increase. The only question is, how much is it going to increase, and will they be able to cut certain things in certain agencies? But yeah, so I totally get that. But I just wanted to highlight some of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes. Yesterday, I just wrote about, or I guess this is Wednesday, school choice heads to the governor. Long debate. I think it was about 2 hours of debate, and it finally passed with 20 to 15. That is not a veto-proof majority. However, with President Trump having come out, as you can see there, in support of school choice and preemptively congratulating Governor Little for getting it done, then I think the pressure's on the governor to sign this. Several folks have pointed out to me today that if he were to veto it, he'd be the first Republican governor to veto a school choice bill in America. I haven't checked that, but it sounds reasonable. And obviously, he doesn't want to do that. So I assume this will get signed here in a couple days. He's taking calls from people to say yes or no. And of course, all the teacher union and their friends are going to be calling in and saying, no, veto it. And of course, a lot of homeschoolers are doing the same thing. And, I've explained why I don't think this is a problem for homeschoolers. But so yeah, that's sitting on his desk. You can go back and read that. See my go follow me on Twitter, and you'll see my um, live threads. And finally, yesterday, late last night, because I had a very busy day yesterday, I got back from the town hall meeting and finished writing this. There were some questions raised in JFAC, Joint Finance Appropriations Committee. Um, there were several questions. You can go here and watch the clips that I clipped out. Basically, why did several state agencies, 4 different state agencies, move tens of thousands of dollars into the governor's office budget? Why did the governor's office have an appropriation for Salesforce, $215,000 to implement a constituent management service? I'll do it for half that, Um, but they said they didn't actually purchase the product or go forward with the solution. So where did the money go? And then 1.35 million for the emergency fund, which was established during COVID. So the question is, where did this money go, and why were they making these transfers? Honestly, I don't feel like I'm enough of an expert in how JFAC works or how budgets work for multi-billion-dollar agencies. So all I'm doing is asking questions and waiting for somebody to come in with answers. People I've talked to in the Capitol are concerned about this. They think there's more to this. And so I'll continue digging and continue asking questions. What was interesting was Representative Scott presented a bill that would prevent the governor's office from taking money from other agencies to cover its budget, which is speculation as to what may have been going on. And Representative Steve Birch of Boise, a Democrat, he was very offended that they would question the governor. It's weird. I don't know what's going on there. Is it personal? Is he just such a fan of Governor Little, or I've noticed this thing with Democrats lately. They're very enamored with authority. I think I said this in my show last week. Democrats used to be the folks who were questioning authority, who were speaking truth to power and fighting the man. Well, now they are extremely subservient to authority. Certain authorities, obviously, they're no fans of President Trump, but various experts and various people in various positions, they have a very deferential tone these days. It's very strange, but that is what it is. So go there and read that. Like I said, I don't come to any conclusions because I don't know what the conclusions are. I just ask some questions. So that is the news of the week. And tonight I just published a new one looking at convention of states, some of the money they spent here in Idaho, and how their campaign kind of mirrors that of Prop 1 for ranked choice voting. Obviously, it's two different aims, but they're both looking to change something that we've had so far. The Convention of States group wants to open up the Constitution using a procedure that's never been done before, forcing the Congress to call a convention to propose amendments. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it will it will happen and it'll work out and everything will be perfect. Something tells me though, things like that are unpredictable, and that's all I'll say. Like I said, good conservatives disagree on that, so I'm not going to hold it against people who support it. Also, if you're there at Gem State Chronicle, you can go back. You can look at videos, the previous weeks of Gem State reports. Haven't done a daily minute in a while. Just way too busy. Idaho Insider, make sure you go there. You can see the profiles for all the legislators. Go to legislative branch there, and you see all 105 of them. And what I've been doing lately is trying to link to them from articles so that if you have questions about them, you can just click on it and figure out what's going on. So we mentioned Representative Birch from Boise. You can see him here, his headshot, straight from the legislative website. Same thing with the bio. I'm not editorializing here. This is just what they submitted to the legislative website. How long they've been in office, what their party is, any special titles, committees they're on, scorecards from last year. Being a Democrat, he does not score well on conservative scorecards. Big surprise. And then links to legislative website, campaign website, Twitter, Facebook, Sunshine Report, Ballotpedia, his official legislative email, his personal email, which I found on his website. And again, I'm only publishing personal emails that I find published. I'm not, publishing any secrets. Picture of his district. That is District 15. It's kind of a funny little shape there. This is the west side of Boise. Over here is Meridian. Meridian is over here, and then downtown Boise is over this way. Garden City up there. So this is the purple district in Boise. Hopefully we can make it red again soon. But the cool thing about these pages is the links to other articles. It just does a basic keyword search. So any article where I mention Steve Birch will show up on this list, which I think is pretty cool. So that's that. Let's take a look at that press conference, and then we will go through the laws one by one and see what they are about. So I'm going to play a video, legislative leadership, Speaker Mike Moyle, Senate Pro Tem Kelly Anthon, Representative Brent Crane, Chairman of the State Affairs Committee, and the Secretary of State, Phil McGrain, spoke together. And I will play that for you here. And once that's done, we'll go through the bills and see what's up.
Well, first of all, thank you for being here today. Today in the House State Affairs Committee, we're going to introduce two pieces of legislation. What we have noticed happening in the state of Idaho, specifically in the last election cycle, is what I like to call the monetization of politics. We're seeing a large out-of-state individuals that are spending large amounts of money, specifically PACs. That will be highlighted in the hearing today, as well as when we have a full hearing. So the intent today is to introduce this legislation. We will probably let it percolate for a couple of weeks so people can digest it and weigh in on it before we take action in the committee. But we just want to let you know that we take it seriously. When out-of-state money is being spent, especially dark money out-of-state, we want to provide more transparency and more clarity around those issues. And so with that, I'll defer now to the Speaker of the House, Mike Moyle.
Thanks, Brent. This last election, we saw untold amounts of money coming from across the country into elections here in Idaho. We've never seen that before. So it's our intention to do a little bit better job of identifying who's sending that money in here, where that money's coming from, what it's getting spent on. Voters deserve to know that. Sometimes we have, because of the way our laws are, there's ways for some of those folks to hide behind our laws. We want to make sure that everybody is more transparent and they have the opportunity to learn what's going on. We also delve in a little bit on the lobbying side. Lobbyists spend money too, and they're kind of getting around the law now. So we're going to require them to do more reporting. We're going to require them to tell us what they're spending their money on. We're seeing that a lot on Facebook and flyers a lot. So again, our intention is to get the voters informed on spending.
Well, I want to join in saying thank you for being here today. I think everybody said it very well today. You know, Idaho has a real tradition of disclosure. We believe in sunshine. We believe that the people of Idaho, the voters of Idaho, should have good information. We've done that with our candidates and our elected officials for many, many years. We all have to tell you where we get the money that we use. And what we have seen is an unprecedented amount of money from out of state coming into Idaho politics. You know, the message we want to send to those folks who are not disclosing where they get their money is that Idaho's not for sale. We want to make sure that when their messaging goes out from out of state into our small communities, we want people to know where that money's coming from. I think that's important. I appreciate very much the work of our colleagues in the House of Representatives. They put a lot of work into this. The Idaho Secretary of State has put a lot of work into this. And we want to make sure that, again, for Idaho voters, they know who is influencing their elections. I think that's a very important thing. And I think we're going to do some good work this year.
And I think that Chairman Crane, Speaker Moyle, Pro Tem Anthon pointed out well just the huge influx of money that we've seen in the state this past year. Behind me, you can see the $17 million that just went into legislative races specifically, and this huge influx of independent expenditures. This is the outside money that we're referring to, and specifically highlighting the biggest spender being out of state. You can see that not just influencing our primary elections, general elections, but also here during the legislative session. The biggest spender during the first month of this session is also from out of state. You can see it influencing things. Our sunshine laws were a citizens initiative in the 1970s, and it was because the public wanted transparency about who was trying to influence our policy. And this is really a major step forward to modernize, to catch up what Chairman Crane highlighted, is the monetization of politics. We are seeing more money, but also just new techniques, the indirect lobbying that citizens are experiencing. So what this legislation really tries to do is increase reporting, increase transparency, and to give the public a better view as to what's happening in our state, and to help support our policymakers in the work that they do so that they can do it and represent their constituents in the best way. This has been months and months of work. I really want to thank Speaker Moyle for taking the time and really working through the nitty gritty with us to do such a transformative change in terms of our campaign finance laws. I think there's going to be a robust conversation, as the chairman highlighted, over the next few weeks regarding campaign finance and lobbying. But I think this is really a major step for the state of Idaho. And also thank you guys for being here.
Do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, I think, as the Secretary of State.
All right. Can't hear the question, so I don't want to just sit there. And I noticed while listening, I'm sure you noticed it too, it's only coming in one channel. So on my desktop speakers here, it was only coming out of one speaker. And I checked in my AirPods when I was when it was playing, and it's the same thing. I actually downloaded that from the Secretary of State's YouTube channel. So not to throw anyone under the bus, but the fault was on their end. Next time, though, I'll double check before I upload it into here, because I can fix that. So that's basically it. A ton of money came into Idaho, especially from outside groups, to influence our legislative elections. And without necessarily casting judgment on, the candidates who were the beneficiaries of that, because there was a lot of money going around, but a lot of it was supporting candidates I supported and opposing candidates that I would rather see retired. But it is raising concerns, especially, and Speaker Moyle brought this up during the print hearing that followed that press conference in House State Affairs. He brought up the race in District 30 with Julianne Young, which, as you know, if you're a reader of mine, Young Americans for Liberty, their associated PAC, Make Liberty Win, sent out mailers saying that Julianne Young, Representative David Cannon, and Senator Julia Van Orden voted against a library bill, which actually all three of them voted for. Even Senator Van Orden, who is often on the wrong side of the Freedom Index. And then the backside of that same mailer accused them of trying to poison children's minds by supporting public TV, which is a bit of a stretch for one thing, because they voted for the public TV budget. But even Representative Young did not vote for that either. And Julianne Young, of course, lost her race in the primary by 2 votes. Now, when you lose a race by 2 votes, there are lots of things you can blame. You can say, I'll bet any candidate who's lost by 2 votes can come up with a list of people that they know who didn't vote. And that's always frustrating. That's just the nature of the thing. You could say, well, I wish I'd made 2 more phone calls. I wish I'd knocked on 1 more door. I wish I'd done 1 more ballot chase. But at the same time, when a mailer comes out that is blatantly false, do you think that could have caused 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 people to say, you know what? I don't know if this is true or not, but this looks pretty bad. I'm just not going to vote. So, yeah, because of that, it has caused leadership in the legislature to say we need to do something. And they did that press conference there with the Secretary of State, which means he's likely on board with at least some of what they're doing, which means that that's a pretty powerful coalition there. So let's look at the bills together. There were 4 bills introduced this morning in House State Affairs. So I'll find my screen again. So the first bill, House Bill 306, criminal libel. And remember, you can find all these at the legislative website. See the whole list and click onto here. And this is just kind of a summary of what's going on with the bill and where it is in the process. It's introduced, read first time, referred to Judiciary Rules and Administration for printing. The Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee, by the way, has to do all the work. That's the committee that handles printing. I don't exactly know what the committee does for that, but that's where it goes. And they also handle the House Journal. So they have to make sure that the journal, which is essentially the minutes of the House each day, is correct. So I guess it's a busy committee. In any case, statement of purpose. So this just tells you what the author or the sponsor of the bill says the bill does. This is not the actual bill. This is not the text of the bill. If this ever, the bill goes into law, this is not part of it. If the bill ever goes to court, this is not part of the deliberations. In the age of internet and social media, malicious lies are increasingly capable of destroying the life and reputation of innocent people. I wonder who they're talking about. To prevent this problem from growing further, this legislation creates a felony crime of criminal libel. This would apply when a person publishes false statements about another person, knowing that the statements are false, or with reckless disregard as to whether they are true or false. All right. Fiscal note. Every bill has a fiscal note, tells you what it will cost or what money it'll bring in if it's, raises taxes or something, which we haven't seen a tax hike in a long time, thankfully. Based on Wisconsin's experience with a similar law, Idaho could expect approximately 1 prosecution per year and 1 conviction for this crime every 3 years. As a non-violent felony, a suspended sentence and probation is the most likely sentencing outcome. Probation costs would likely be $2,700 per year starting in fiscal year 27. As a very low-frequency criminal prosecution, no additional prosecution staffing should be required. Sponsors are Representative Mike Moyle, the Speaker, and Representative Brent Crane. So let's go back and look at the actual text of the bill. What does this actually do? All right, so it repeals Chapter 48, Title 18 of Idaho Code, and then it creates a new Title 18. So it's essentially wholesale replacing a section of code. Let's go to Idaho Code and look it up. Title 18. That's actually what we want. And what was it? Chapter 48. So this bill would completely redo the entire libel chapter. So libel defined. A malicious defamation expressed either by writing, printing, or by signs or pictures or the like tending to blacken the memory of one who's dead, or to impeach the honesty, integrity, virtue, or reputation, or publish the natural or alleged defects of one who's alive and thereby expose him to public hatred, contempt, or ridicule. I'll bet y'all didn't know that this was on the books. Sometimes, even well-meaning people, well-meaning conservatives, they just go all the way to first principles and don't really pay attention to the lay of the land. First Amendment, Congress shall not abridge the freedom of speech. But there are libel laws on the books. This has been on since 1972. So let's go back. Punishment for libel. Every person who willfully and with malicious intent to injure another publishes or procures to be published any libel is punishable by fine not exceeding $5,000 or imprisonment in the county jail not exceeding 6 months. You can go to jail for libel. Did you know that? I didn't. Truth may be proved, malice, jury to determine law and fact. So here's the meat of it. In all criminal prosecutions for libel, the truth may be given in evidence to the jury, and if it appears to the jury that the matter charged is libelous as true, and was published with good motives and for justifiable ends, the party shall be acquitted. The jury has the right to determine the law and the fact. So libel, you're trying to injure someone's reputation deliberately. But the truth is a defense. If you say somebody is a socialist and they sue you for libel, and then you produce evidence, as what happened with the Alger Hiss and Whitaker Chambers case in the 1950s, by the way, or 1940s even. If you produce evidence that, hey, this person was a card-carrying member of the American Socialists in this time, then okay, well, that is truth as a defense. Let's see what's next. Malice presumed. In injuries, publication is presumed to have been malicious if no justifiable motive for making it is shown. Interesting. Sufficiency of publication. To sustain a charge of publishing libel, it's not needful that the words or things complained of should have been read or seen by another. It's enough that the accused knowingly parted with them the immediate custody of libel under circumstances which exposed it to be read or seen by another person than himself. What's interesting is this was written in 1972, which most libel stuff is going to be newspaper articles where you say, write a letter to the editor saying that such and such person is doing awful things or is, whatever, knowing that it's not true. You're just trying to harm their reputation. Nowadays, the internet's changed a lot of things. How many political ads are just internet only, social media, text message? What about product reviews or restaurant reviews? Say you deliberately leave a review on a restaurant on Yelp or Google or whatever, saying that they have rats in their kitchen, and it's not true. You're just mad at the owner, and so you want to harm their reputation. That could fall under the definition of libel. I'm not a lawyer. Anyway, report of public proceeding, limitation of proceeding, threats to publish, extortion. Oh yeah, it's still extortion if you threaten to publish something that's libelous. Okay, so that's the current statute. Let's go back to the bill. So this is the new statute. So legislative findings and intent. The legislature finds and declares that malicious lies meant to destroy a person's reputation are easy to spread in the age of social media, as I just said. Idahoans may have their careers and even their safety threatened as a result of malicious lies. Traditional tort law has limited the deterrent effect in stopping the spread of malicious lies. The Supreme Court of the United States recognized in a case that malicious lies do not enjoy constitutional protection. The court observed in the case that malicious lies are at odds with the premises of democratic government and with the orderly manner in which economic, social, or political change is to be effected. And the court further observed that malicious lies are of such slight social value that any benefit may be derived from them is clearly outweighed by the social interest in order and morality. So I'm not going to read the whole thing. You can go read the whole thing, but let's just skim it. Criminal libel: maliciously publishes a false statement about another person. Actual malice. That's always the question. Everything I've heard, and again, not a lawyer, but everything I've heard and read about libel law is that actual malice is a tough bar to clear. Because if you want to sue someone for libel, you have to go prove that not only is the thing that they're claiming false, but that they knew it was false and they did it deliberately to harm your reputation. And courts have held that elected officials, or anybody in the public eye really, is a public figure, and the bar is even higher. If you make up something about your neighbor because you want to damage their reputation and you spread it around on social media, they could sue you for libel, and the bar is down here. It's still a high bar. But if you're a public figure, if you're an elected official or a candidate for office and you try to sue someone for libel, the bar is very high because people say things about public officials all the time. My tea's getting cold. I got too into talking. A bit of apple cinnamon tea tonight. Too late for caffeine. So let's see. Remember in the primary campaign last year when a PAC sent out text messages claiming that Senator Tammy Nichols had been arrested for check fraud 20 years ago? Of course, Senator Nichols, being the good sport that she was, in addition to filing a complaint, made T-shirts out of the message because it's just funny, the things people will do. But at the same time, that is, should that be legal? A lot of people online are talking about how this is like a ministry of truth thing. It's Mike Moyle is going to decide what is true and what is false, and I don't know. We're still reading the bill here, so I don't know how accurate that fear is. But the question is, what crosses the line? At what point does it go from speech to slander or libel? Slander is things that you say. Libel is things that you write. By the way, that's the difference. But it's the same idea, saying something that you know is not true in order to harm someone's reputation. Where's the line? And that's the thing about the Make Liberty Win mailer in District 30. Was that libelous to claim that legislators voted a certain way on a bill when they did not? And they did it deliberately because when Make Liberty Win sends out mailers, they're not substantive. And this goes for most PACs. I'm not just singling out y'all on this one. This goes for most PACs and groups that engage in electioneering. They're not going to send you a booklet explaining exactly why you should support one candidate or oppose another. They're going to send you a big picture. Either if they support the candidate, they're going to show the candidate looking very statesman-like and explaining that, or not even explaining, just with positive words around them. Honor, duty, if it's maybe a military veteran, trusted conservative, whatever. And if it's someone they oppose, they'll find a picture of them looking terrible, looking mean or grouchy, and say, awful, hate, whatever. So these are not exactly highbrow things. But again, where do you draw the line? So continuing in the bill, publish penalty for criminal libel. Person who commits criminal libel shall be guilty of a felony published by a fine not exceeding $100,000, confinement in the state penitentiary for a period not exceeding 5 years, or both. Holy cow. Okay, that is a big, that's a big punishment. Remember, in the existing law, it's a fine of $5,000 and 6 months in jail. This is $100,000 and 5 years in jail, up to. It leaves it up to the judge. The judge could, up to with no mandatory minimum means the judge can say $0 or $1 or something. But still, that's a high ceiling. Restitution, jurisdiction. The prosecuting attorney for a county in which venue is appropriate shall have jurisdiction. The attorney general shall have jurisdiction to prosecute criminal libel if the libel is made against a state officer or state employee and concerns their official conduct. And emergency declaring. Every bill has an emergency clause, so that's nothing new. So that raises the bar. And that replaces all of Chapter 48, Title 18. Interesting. And it looks like it's criminal prosecution because it's criminal libel. So I guess it would be left up to the prosecuting attorneys of the counties if they want to pursue this. No, it could get interesting. It's again, I'm not coming down either way. I'm not saying this is good or bad. I'm just saying this is the bill that they've presented and asking the question: where does the line between free speech and criminal libel? Where is that line? I don't know. That's something we need to discuss and figure out. And when this bill comes in for a hearing, I'm sure we're going to hear a lot about that. During the hearing, I believe it was Representative Skog who asked, is this going to put every liar in jail? Well, that's something we need to figure out. Second bill. Second bill that was introduced this morning. Adds to existing law to provide that the Secretary of State shall investigate false claims. So let's look at the statement of purpose. This is again Moyle and Crane. It's increasingly common to see attack ads in Idaho political campaigns with claims that are clearly false. Again, I wonder what they're talking about. This legislation would allow a candidate about whom false claims have been published to submit the material to the Secretary of State. If the Secretary of State finds the claim to be verifiably false, the party making the claims may respond to the Secretary of State, after which the Secretary of State is to publish his findings on his office's website. Interesting. So the thing that jumps out at me there is verifiably false. In this case, the Make Liberty Win mailer against District 20 and Julianne Young would have been proven verifiably false because it was obviously false. There's different things in political electioneering campaigns. There's rhetoric. This person is a socialist. It's a rhino. It's this person votes with Democrats. That's just rhetoric. There's nothing really substantive there. On the other hand, saying this legislator voted against this bill when that's not true, that's not rhetoric. That's stating a fact. A fact is either true or false. So let's look at the text of the bill. All right. So Chapter 2, Title 34 of Idaho Code B, and the same is hereby amended. So what is Title 34? Let's go over that just to see what section of code they're amending. That's all crimes. Do you know that all these are crimes? Arson, assault and battery, barratry, attorneys at law, bigamy and polygamy, billiard, pool, and card rooms and confectionables. Oh, that one was repealed. Okay, so we can have billiards again. Bribery and corruption, burglary, children, vulnerable adults, compounding crimes, conspiracies, contempts, corporations. It's all in alphabetical order. Cruelty to animals was repealed. They must have put it somewhere else. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, Idaho statutes. Was it Title 34? Title 34 is elections. No surprise. That's what we are talking about. And this is in Chapter 2. So it's adding a new section in Chapter 2 that will be known as 34-221. So yeah, right now it ends at 34-220. So it would add a new section into this title. It's the duties of officers. So the Secretary of State's the chief election officer. Advice to county clerks. Conference with the county clerks, duties of the Secretary of State. So basically, this is the duties of the Secretary of State, essentially. So the Secretary of State shall investigate false claims against candidates. Any candidate for office who believes that false information has been published about him during an election campaign may report such claim to the Secretary of State, who shall investigate the claim. If the Secretary of State finds the claim to be verifiably false, he shall give the publishing party 7 days to respond to his findings, provided, however, that if the Secretary of State finds a claim to be verifiably false within 2 weeks of an election, the publishing party shall have 48 hours to respond. After the Secretary of State receives the publishing party's response, if any, he shall post his findings on the website at the end of the next business day. As used in this section, publish means communicate information to any one or more persons, either by telephone, radio, television, internet, or writing of any kind. Well, that is very sparse. So don't exactly know what to do with that. I guess in the case of the District 30 mailer, Julianne Young could have sent that into the Secretary of State's office, and he would have published it on the website saying this is false. And again, people are worried that this is going to put the Secretary of State in the position of being a fact checker and deciding what's true and what's false, and obviously we don't want that. So if this were to become law, I would hope that they interpret the bar of being verifiably false to be very high. Because again, we don't want government officials wading into rhetorical battles. So-and-so said that I'm a socialist. So-and-so said that I'm an extremist. That's just words. That's not verifiable one way or the other. It's opinions. So yeah, again, I'm looking forward to the full hearing on this to hear what they're saying. So those are the two about telling lies. Can you believe people would just tell lies in the year of our Lord 2025? All right, House Bill 308. Let's continue going through this. I hope this is interesting. I hope this is informative. It is for me. Again, I did not actually read these before coming into here, so I'm learning this at the same time you are. So House Bill 308, campaign finance laws, sunshine laws were enacted in 1974 by Citizens Initiative to increase transparency regarding money spent on campaigns and lobbying. This legislation updates and reorganizes the campaign finance laws to increase transparency, simplify reporting, improve enforcement to better align with increased spending and modern practices in political campaigns. This legislation reorganizes campaign finance laws by moving the provisions from Title 67, Chapter 66, State Government and State Affairs, to Title 74, Chapter 3, Transparent and Ethical Government. This new chapter separates the reporting requirements and responsibilities into 5 parts. It also separates the reporting requirements for campaign finance from the reporting requirements for lobbying. That's an interesting point, and it's what I've heard some people talk about is what is the line between lobbying and electioneering? Again, I always use IFF, Idaho Freedom Foundation, for these examples because it's the one I'm familiar with, having worked there. Idaho Freedom Foundation is a 501c3 organization. It's a nonprofit. As a 501c3, it does not have to disclose its donors. It does not engage in electioneering. Keep that in mind. IFF does not tell you to vote for or against certain candidates. They're very careful, or they're supposed to be very careful about even approaching that line. They present their Freedom Index, but again, that's created by the legislators themselves. The IFF rates the bills, and legislators, by voting on them, create their own scores. And sometimes they'll criticize lawmakers or say some other lawmakers are doing a good job, but they're not telling you to vote for or against. IFA, Idaho Freedom Action, is the 501c4 counterpart. And what they do is they go in and they kind of hit the line between lobbying and electioneering, because they will... they'll send out mailers or ads saying, kind of like what Yal is doing lately. Did you see that your legislator voted this way? Call them up and tell them to stop betraying you. It's just, the whole point of it is just to create a bad association in your mind with that particular legislator, so that when you do go vote, you will vote against them. But they're not technically telling you to do that. So it's very close to the line. And then finally, PACs, political action committees. They're the ones who come out and say, yeah, vote against this person, vote for this person. And PACs have to report their donors because they're engaging in campaigning. They're engaging in campaign activities, electioneering. They're trying to sway the outcome of an election one way or another. That's not a bad thing, but because of that, the people of Idaho, as you see in this way, I always get so mixed up when I'm on the camera. Up there, was enacted in 1974 by Citizens Initiative to have sunshine laws. Legislation makes several changes designed to increase the frequency of reporting, adjust the campaign finance limitations, and improve enforcement by creating an improved fine structure. One-time capital outlay of $5,000, a new FTE, full-time equivalent position for an investigator within the Secretary of State's office. I'm going to pay $32 an hour. including benefits. It's 94,000. Expected that these will be covered by the additional fine revenue. So they're going to find enough people to pay for the position. Interesting. The bill text. Yeah, this one's a long one, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. Whew, that's long. But this is basically a complete rewrite of Idaho's campaign finance laws. It's a lot of pages. Let's see. Yes, Title 74 Idaho Code being the same is hereby amended by the addition of a new chapter, Chapter 3, Title 74, Campaign Finance Transparency. You got Part 1, Purpose of Chapter, promote openness, public confidence, promote transparency. Oh, goodness, this is long. A few things I do know about this is that it does raise the contribution limits. Right now, for a legislative race, candidates are limited to receiving $1,000 donations from donors, and they can get that twice: once for the primary, once for the general election. So they can actually get up to $2,000 if they do win the primary and make it to the general election. Statewide, I think it's $5,000 and $10,000, respectively. However, and this is a point that Representative Crane made when he introduced this bill this morning, is that PACs have no limits. So the thing about PACs, political action committees, is that if they donate directly to a candidate or if they coordinate messaging with a candidate, then they are subject to the limit. They can only donate $1,000. Or if they coordinate something where they do something on behalf of a candidate and they work with the candidate's campaign to make it happen, again, it's limited to $1,000 because that is a direct contribution. However, if they act independently, that's why it's called an independent expenditure. If they act independently, they don't have any limits. So a PAC could come in and spend $1 million to unseat a legislator in Idaho, and that's completely legal. And this is not going to make it illegal. What it does is it increases the limits for candidates because candidates are put at a disadvantage by this. If a PAC can come in and spend unlimited money, but you have to get it in $1,000 chunks, then you're obviously at a disadvantage. And honestly, that sometimes works out for us as conservatives. Make Liberty win. I mean, I know I dump on them because of what they did to Julianne Young, but they also, threw a lot of firepower at Chuck Winder. And now he is retired, and Josh Kaiser is in the Senate, and I think that's a good thing. But at the same time, just because the outcome to that was good doesn't mean that the system still doesn't need to be reformed. So this, as I understand it, it raises it to 5,000. I want to say. Let's do a Control F. There we go. Limitations on contributions. Aggregate contributions to any person or candidate for the state legislature, judicial office, or local government office shall be limited to no more than $5,000 for the primary and no more than $5,000 for the general. So it raises it from 1,000 to 5,000. That's a quintupling of the limit. Now, the whole idea of limiting donations to candidates, that conservatives were not really on board with that when it started happening. You had the McCain-Feingold Act at the national level about 20 years ago. I don't remember when Idaho put these limits in. So it'll be interesting to see. I think there's going to be some pushback. People are going to say, no, this is too high. Even Representative Crane, when he was presenting it, says he thinks it might be too high. But on the other hand, this does help level the playing field. Say a PAC's going to come after you with $50,000, and that's in addition to whatever your opponent is spending. And so you got to raise some money. And so you go out and you need 50 people to give you $1,000. That's a lot of people. But what if you could get 10 people to give you $5,000? I mean, we should all be so lucky to have 10 friends with $5,000 ready to write checks to us with. But that might be a little bit more straightforward. And yeah, this goes on and on and on. It's a complete rewrite of our campaign finance laws. And I will examine this and write about it in the coming week. They're amending another code here. So that's a long one. You can go read it yourself. You can download the PDF and throw it into Grok or ChatGPT and see what it thinks. See if it'll summarize it for you. It actually works fairly well. But I'm running up on the top of the hour here, so I will move on to the final bill. House Bill 309, Representative Crane also did this one, and this is about lobbyists. Idaho's lobbying laws, also known as sunshine laws, were originally enacted. Yeah, we know that. This legislation updates these laws by separating lobbying reports from campaign finance reporting and increases the frequency of reporting by registered lobbyists during and outside legislative sessions. In addition, this legislation updates the definition of lobbying to indicate clearly that both direct and indirect efforts to influence policymaking are considered lobbying. Interesting. So let's go back and read the text. Now, lobbying has a bad name, obviously. But I always argue that I remind people lobbying is protected by the First Amendment to the Constitution. Did you know that? The First Amendment protects 5 things, 5 freedoms: freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, freedom of the press, and the right to petition your government. And that's really what lobbying is. Lobbying is just a group of people, maybe they're just individuals, or maybe they're a company, corporations, but in the end, it's people making these decisions, hiring somebody to speak on their behalf to say we want this policy or we don't want that policy. That's what lobbying is. And obviously it gets frustrating when lobbyists come in with a lot of money and they wine and dine our legislators. and it seems like they have more influence. At our town hall meeting last night, both Representative Ted Hill and Representative Josh Tanner were almost competing with each other to see who has pissed off the most lobbyists. They were talking about all the lobbyists that they've pretty much told in no uncertain terms that they're not going along with their desires. So while it is frustrating that when we hear stories about lobbyists, remember that they are just people themselves. They're there to persuade our legislators to vote one way or the other. And our legislators will sometimes disagree, especially if they hear from their constituents. As I keep reminding people, if you don't talk to your legislator, all they're going to do is hear the lobbyists and fellow legislators and people from the executive branch. So they need to hear from you. Anyway, House Bill 309. Goodness, that's a long title. I feel bad for the House clerk reading that, but she does a great job, by the way. It's Erica McGinnis. All right, it repeals a ton of stuff, and it's putting it all in a new section. Candidate, compensation, contribution, election. Yeah, this one's pretty long, too. This one might even be longer than the other one. Lobbying disclosure. This is a complete new chapter here. Expenditure to lobby. Lobby or lobbying means attempting through contacts with or causing others to make contact with members of the legislature or legislative committees or an executive official to influence the approval, modification, or rejection of any legislation by the Idaho legislature or any committee thereof, or by the governor, or to educate, develop, or maintain relationships with, promote goodwill with, or entertain members of the legislature or executive officials. Lobbying shall also include indirect contacts and attempts to influence legislation by attempting to affect the opinion of the public with respect to legislation and encouraging the audience to take action with respect to legislation. Oh, that's interesting. So, I wonder where I would fall on this, because as a citizen journalist, as an independent media person, whatever you want to call me, I do urge the audience to take action. I say, hey, call your legislator and tell them to support this bill or oppose that bill. Most of the time, I just say call and tell them your opinion. I hope that I've been persuasive enough to get you around to my position, but really, I just want you involved with the process. But in any case, I wonder if I would fall under this, because I'm not paid by anyone to do it, and I'm not paying to do it. I'm just a guy with a microphone and a camera here. Also means communicating with an executive official for the purpose of influencing the consideration, amendment, adoption, or rejection of any rule or rulemaking, any rate-making decision, procurement, contract, yada, yada. Neither lobbying nor lobbying includes an association or other organization's act of communicating with the members of that association or organization. So if, like, the Farm Bureau tells its members about something, that's not lobbying. Neither does it include communicating with an executive official for carrying out ongoing negotiations following the award or bid of a contract. So these are exceptions. Interesting. Well, I don't know. Lobbyist includes any person who lobbies. Lobbyist client means the person on whose behalf the lobbyist is acting. Lobbyist employer. And person means an individual, corporation, association, firm, partnership, committee, political party, club, or other organization. Well, that's interesting. So again, that's a long one. I'll do my best to dive into there and tell you what it means as well. But there you go. Those are the 4 bills that were introduced this morning in House State Affairs regarding campaigning. So you have turning criminal libel into a felony. You have putting false statements on the Secretary of State's website. You have a complete rewrite of the campaign finance and sunshine laws. And then you have a rewrite of the lobbying laws. So that is very interesting. Representative Brent Crane said during the hearing that at least the campaign finance one, he was going to deliberately hold for 2 weeks before taking action. So we're going to see some flurries of information go back and forth. People, ironically, lobbying one way or another. And I'm sure we'll see lots of hyperbole. I will do my best to cut through the hyperbole and just bring you the truth as I see it. So I will spend some time this weekend digging through this, and hopefully Monday or Tuesday have an article just trying to make sense of it. So that is what happened in the legislature this week. There's a lot of other stuff that happened this week, too much to go over in 1 hour. Make sure you're catching Idaho Signal at 11:30 Mountain Time every day, where I come on for about 10 or 15 or more minutes, talk about the legislature, but also Matt Edwards interviews a lot of other people and tells you what's going on. Remember to subscribe at the Gem State Chronicle, gemstatechronicle.com, or go to gemstate.substack.com if you want to subscribe directly, get every article in your email. I try to do one a day. Sometimes I take Sundays off unless I really feel like I have something to say, kind of from a spiritual perspective. Follow me on X, Twitter at Gem State Brian. I do my best to live tweet when I'm sitting here watching committees or when I'm in the Capitol watching committees or the House or Senate floor. It was fun live tweeting the mask mandate bill today. I got some good angle shots of senators from up in the gallery. So yeah, I appreciate everyone who is watching and listening and reading and subscribing and sharing and all that fun stuff. So I wish you all a great weekend, and I'll see you next week for week 8 of the legislature. Take care.